We're going to get this started. Welcome, everybody. We are going to talk about internet video advertising and marketing, the next generation of consumer reach. We have a great panel here, heavily weighted against people who actually buy advertising, but a whole lot of people who like to sell it. So if there are any people in the audience who buy advertising for a living, you'll get a chance to pepper them soon. We're going to keep this to a discussion format. We're not going to be doing presentations and demos and that sort of thing. We're going to try to get to the meat of the intersection of the exploding video content on the internet and advertising. Is that just me, or is everybody else hearing voices too? You know, clearly in the last year, you know, video advertising has exploded. You know, to me, the best example of how you can quantify this is a company called YouTube. YouTube in the month of February served 485 million video streams. And rumor going around these halls is they just raised a new round of financing at a $500 million pre-money valuation. I'm not sure I actually believe that, but it's a wonderful, wonderful rumor, and for all the people engaged in the video delivery and advertising business, it's certainly good news. What I'm going to do now is introduce the panel. Everybody here is going to talk for just 2 or 3 minutes and try to explain what their company does, what they do within their company, and then we'll kind of dive into the meat of the matter. So first up, Keith Richmond, CEO of Break.com.
Hi, thank you. Break.com is a leading entertainment channel for guys 15 to 35 with about 900,000 daily unique visitors. Last month we showed about 300 million videos to about 12.5 million unique visitors. The content is primarily user-generated. It's almost exclusively original short-form video clips, which we then buy or license from the users who submitted them. Last month we paid about $40,000 for original content from the users. We believe we have a real platform similar to traditional media, and in many cases our audience actually I think is larger than traditional media companies going after the same demographic. And so as a result, we think we've got a great advertising platform. We have a hard to reach demographic. They're actively engaged. They're coming to the site to watch video entertainment. And over the next few months and few years, we think we'll see a migration towards more content, more audience, and more longer form entertainment online.
And what do you do there, Keith?
Oh, sorry, I'm CEO of Break.com. I'm the guy who looks at the videos. No, I'm just kidding.
Next up, Greg Dimitriadis, CEO of Whiteblocks.
Hi, good afternoon. That's right, Greg Dimitriadis, CEO of Whiteblocks. Whiteblocks is a company just similar to its name. It's white because it's white labeling networks when we build networks for organizations, and blocks because we have a variety of different blocks: e-commerce, advertising, donations, auctions. So you pick and choose what block you want when you want to build that viewer interface for the network that you're going to design. Whiteblocks is very robust. It has a very interactive experience, and one of the things that it does is the advertising aspect. The advertising can be metered. It is based on IP addresses, based on latitude, longitude. So based when a person actually will come in, we will determine who they are and be able to send them or have them view that type of ad. So if it's Coca-Cola and it's going to be in Spanish, or if it's going to be in English or a different language, we will know who they are. If it's a different price point, we'll send them that particular price point. If in fact the content is taking place, let's say audio and video content, and all of a sudden it goes to commercial, live ad insertion into a commercial, the actual player will turn into a Coca-Cola type of commercial. We have found that the metrics that we're having, people logging in, are very, very unique. We find that when we're doing, for example, Clear Channel live broadcasting Monday through Friday, that the average stay is about 62 minutes. What's interesting is that when we're talking to ad agencies, brands out there, is that they really want to know how to get into that viewer's head, how they can get that viewer to accept their brand. And Whiteblocks is able to provide those type of interactive experiences for advertising.
Great, thanks, Greg. Rebecca Paoletti, Creative Director of Maven.
Hi, thanks for coming the very last day. I am the creative director at Maven Networks. For those of you who don't know what we do, we are a software platform. Like my colleagues, we white label all of our applications. We power a lot of marketers and content providers to create immersive video-based broadband channels for the desktop. And we're launching a streaming player this month, 2 days this month in April, that will provide a streaming front end to the download that we also do. Our customers have been Chevy, GM, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, National Geographic Channel. We've powered Atom Films for the last 3 years as far as their high definition service. We're working with some new brands. Nike, we just launched very stealthily around a World Cup application. This is one I was talking about earlier. It's based on 12 to 14-year-old boys who are soccer freaks, and it's actually distributed via memory sticks as well as some blog postings, some other places, but it doesn't have an actual web presence. It's just out on their desktops and on their portable devices. My role as creative director is to work with a lot of our customers to figure out how they're going to make money distributing video, whether it's streaming it, delivering it to video iPods, putting it on PSPs, putting it in HD quality full screen on desktops, to really figure out what the marketing business requirements and target audience requirements are around the video. So is it targeting and profiling that's really important to success? Is it some sort of pay model? Is it subscription? Is it advertising based? So to not let people just throw up video because they think it's a great idea, because everything is a great idea right now, and certainly this conference has been testimony to, we have video, what can we do with it? And the first thing I do is, how do you want to make money with it? Because it's not going to be useful to anyone if you're just throwing it up and you don't know who you're working with or why you should be working with them.
So the point of view that you should actually have a plan to make money with these products is part of what you do?
That tends to be my job.
So
yes.
you haven't visited Silicon Valley lately, have you?
Going there tomorrow. Wearing the hat.
Darcy Lawrence, did I get that right? Oh, yes. VP of Media Sales, Savvis.
Yeah, I'm Darcy Lorenz with the Media Services Group at Savvis. On the panel, I guess we're the only infrastructure company, so this will be an interesting conversation today. We own the infrastructure that powers most of the major brands in the world in terms of music, audio, and video. We've been around for a long time. You probably don't know us, but you know a lot of the companies we've acquired over time, like Digital Island, Exodus, Whamnet, and those kind of companies who have been around for a while, and we're some of the early adopters and early providers in this space. That's somebody from Akamai.
Well,
That's an Akamai guy doing that.
No, what happened is they heard infrastructure, and
They're testing you out.
Buzz. Okay. And I hope you heard the rest of that. But what we're doing today is obviously helping a lot of companies to transform their media, to deliver their media. And for all intents and purposes, helping to move that media around the world in a very secure, reliable way, like we've done for a couple decades in the banking industry, and that's what we're doing today. So hopefully we can impart to you some of our experiences with our advertising companies that we work with, what they're seeing as transformations in this business, the cross-platform promotions. Mobile is a big business for them and us today, and we can talk about a number of things from cable to broadcast to mobile to broadband, and that's what we do today. Thank you.
next up, Adam Gerber, VP of Advertising Products and Strategy from a company that's executed the worst stealth launch in history, Bright Cove.
I actually don't think we've actually physically launched yet, but Adam Gerber with Bright Cove, and my role is VP of Ad Product and Strategy. And Bright Cove, for those of you who aren't familiar with what we're trying to do, is an online services company, really looking to help any commercial video rights holder distribute video through an open internet distribution model. So we're focused today on delivering video to the PC via streaming. It's where the scale is. It's where we've chosen to focus. But our long-term vision, as pretty much everyone else's, is to figure out how to deliver video across platform, across device, and via any format. My role at Bright Cove is really to help develop new advertising formats that involve viewers, that don't disrespect them, and that really try to transform where we've come over the last 50 years from the existing TV model. My background, and I'll choose to represent buyers. My background is 15 years on the media services side of the business with large media agencies in New York, working with clients like P&G and UPS and Burger King. And for the past 7 years prior to joining Brightcove was really responsible for launching 2 interactive units at 2 of the large holding companies. So I'll switch my hat as we go through this and represent Brightcove, and then also try to give you some perspective from the buy side of how people are thinking about this video space.
Excellent. Greg Bernino, Senior VP, Sales and Marketing, Aru Media.
Hi, if you don't know who Rue is, we're here, we're outside. We are similar in a lot of ways to Brightcove. We are an internet TV services company. We empower publishers, anybody with a commercial website, publishers, broadcasters, et cetera, to have their brand TV portal, internet TV portal on their website. And we provide them with a full turnkey solution that includes technology, front-end technology as well as back-end, access to an extensive library of short-form video content from 50 different providers. Unlike, say, a Break.com, we're not focused on consumer-generated content today, but instead provide content from, for example, in news, AP and Reuters, all the major record labels, major film studios, et cetera, so that the video portal is robust and provides a good viewing experience. We monetize that through advertising and marketing, both in terms of technology and support, as well as an ad sales team. We're powering today about 130 websites. We've been in business for 5 years, so we've been doing this for some time. The 130 websites really range. They range from very large, Verizon, Cable and Wireless, Telstra, News Corp, Interactive Corp, down to very small niche sites that are very targeted, who may be producing their own content, but in many cases, they're just looking to leverage our content from a video standpoint to complement what they do from a text and graphics standpoint. In a typical month, this month, for example, we delivered north of 60 million impressions. We band all of our 120 websites together, and we sell that as a network to ad agencies. So that's basically what we do. I'm SVP of Sales and Marketing. What that means here really is that I do everything, including make coffee and take the garbage out. I don't do the books, and but I'm responsible for revenue. I'm responsible for growing the network. I manage the ad sales team. My background a little bit is not all that dissimilar to Adam's, actually. I've been in the digital media space now for 6 or 7 years, but before that spent 10 years on the agency side in media services, both traditional broadcast and print media, as well as interactive media.
Great. Sean Conahan, Founder, Chairman, and CEO of Intercasting Corp.
Intercasting Corp is the creator of Rabble, which is a mobile picture and video blogging service available on a cell phone near you. The mobile space enables a handful of different business models from the internet. I look forward to sharing some of those with you later on in the panel. I'm also dubiously distinguished as the guy at mp3.com that got us sued for $250 million for willful copyright infringement, a direction that I think a lot of the online video hosting services are headed toward. So I've got some thoughts about that as well that I look forward to sharing with you as well.
You got to admire a guy who leads with, yeah, I got my last company sued out of business.
Well, we ended up selling for $382 million. So anyway, that is it.
All right, Steve Starr, CEO of Rever.
A great exit strategy. Yeah, I'm Steven Starr. I'm the CEO and founder of Rever. Rever is a viral distribution company. We're in the business of making it possible for creators and advertisers to meet each other in a marketplace, for those creators to be selected out by those advertisers, for them to control the advertising against their content, and for that content to move across the network and onto other platforms where we track it everywhere it goes. We have some pretty interesting technology around that. We believe that we're giving the creator a new set of opportunities about how to control the monetization of their content on the network. We think that our technology is actually distinct from everybody else on this panel in that we treat each media unit autonomously. We are giving every one of those pieces of content dynamic advertising, and it can move as far and wide across peer-to-peer email, websites, other platforms with us tracking it along the way. My background is I started in this business in the agency side of the business, ran the motion picture operation at William Morris, left to become a creator, so I was inside the Beltway, and then I went outside and learned what it was like to be a creator trying to get projects made, wrote and directed some film, produced some television, and then moved into the digital space around 7 years ago, and I've been doing different kinds of user-generated initiatives, both grassroots and kind of venture-backed ever since. Partners in the company include the designers of Flickr, the founder of the Freenet Project, the founder of iBlast, and a bunch of other pretty smart people, and we're all in a room together trying to figure out some cool stuff.
Great. Actually, that's a good place to start with the sort of next generation of reach part of the panel description. As I said before, you know, there's a large and growing activity of people taking video content from sites like Break and Rever and some of the other brands up here and some of the others that we know well, and embedding them in blogs and personal spaces and emailing them around and whatnot. And so the question, Steve, let's start with you since you were the last one to talk. How do you effectively monetize traffic to the video content when you don't really control the environment that the video content is in, right? If somebody embeds it in their blog, you can't stop them from embedding it in the blog. You've made it available, but how do you turn to the advertisers and say, listen, we know we can deliver you a quality environment for your advertising, or is that even an issue?
We launched around 15, 16 weeks ago, and actually we've just launched in beta. Our formal launch is a few months out. We're finding we're getting great sponsors and advertisers approaching us who are not, let's just say, blue chip yet, except in the entertainment space. But the truth is that we're finding that advertisers, as long as they feel like they can control the type of content they're advertising against in the wild, it seems to be working just fine for them. I would counter something you said. We actually do control the content in the wild in that we are able to dynamically insert specific ads against that content. And the reason we think that's of value to the content owner is that means that instead of releasing your content in the wild with an embedded ad that you can never change, we're releasing content in the wild that people can embed in their websites, that can send to their friends and what have you, that we can literally dynamically insert ads against that particular character of that particular site and or location the content's being played, which is of great value to advertisers.
Right, but you can't really control the page content around that, right? And so somebody could see their ad, right, in a context that doesn't match what they're trying to portray as their brand, right?
Absolutely, and I think the argument I'd make there is that our ads are embedded in the video itself. We're not throwing a banner up against somebody's page. And you know, we find that a lot of our traffic's coming from kids on MySpace who are pulling stuff off of our website, putting it on MySpace where it's showing up there. Advertisers have no problem with that.
Greg, when you're out pitching, how does that play out for you?
You know, our model's a little bit different in that we do control the environment. We're not just throwing the video out into the wild, but we're actually powering video environments on destination sites. We offer some ability for some of the clips to be, ripped out and thrown other places. We're not monetizing that today. Where we're monetizing video is on the destination sites that we power, and in those cases, we do control the entire video environment. In some cases, page elements around that video environment as well. But what we're finding that echoes some of the other comments is that the destination site itself, while important, is becoming, for a lot of our advertisers, less important than the content against which the ad is running. Mm-hmm. So again, also we roll video advertising in the video environment, so it's video pre-roll or whatever. What we're finding is that, whereas, and there's still some of this going on, where the buyers used to be very, very concerned about having their ads appear in front of video content of a certain type on a branded website. What we're finding now is many more buyers recognize that somebody who is, let's say, watching diabetes video on any Rue-powered site is as good a customer if they hit them with targeted relevant advertising, regardless of what the destination brand is.
And they're not expressing, at least now, a concern over what might be surrounding their brand in that environment.
They're not, but obviously we work closely with our sites, and we know the sites we're on. It's not the same as being in a MySpace environment or a video blog.
But Keith, you're a little closer to the Wild West, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're not sure. Of the 300 million videos we show, 260 million are on break, and the other 40 million at this point we kind of feel are a loss leader, just to generate traffic and awareness for our site, and to generate click-throughs and more exposure in environments like MySpace. But I'm not utterly convinced that we'll be able to ever monetize that, or that will stay a sustainable product for us, quite honestly, just because, the content notwithstanding, there are a lot of people in the conversation with us who have expressed fears about their ad appearing next to someone who right above the ad might be talking negatively about the brand that's being advertised on the site. And a lot of the people who are taking the syndicated players, the embeddable players, might be not thrilled to be advertising products that they are actively opposed to. And those sorts of situations continue to come up. So, it's there today. It's great. We view it as a wonderful way to get our brand out there. But I'm not utterly convinced that, at least with what we've seen so far, that we'll be able to monetize it as effectively as we can monetizing video in a controlled environment, which is what our site is.
Adam, be a little schizophrenic for us here.
I've got a lot of stuff running through my head right now. I'm
Do you wanna
deciding
take a few
whether I want to
minutes and
take the
close your
buyer's
thoughts,
approach or
or-
the seller's approach. Look, I think that we are we just had the first pitch of the first inning of a 9-inning game, and I disagree. I will disagree with my colleagues on the panel who say that advertisers are perfectly fine with running in syndicated environments where they don't have any control. If that's the feedback that they think they're getting, I'll tell you why they're getting it. They're getting it because advertisers and agencies have absolutely no ability to monitor where their content is running. They don't have the people in place to check thousands of syndicated affiliates. Their clients don't pay attention to it. It's not a large enough line item in their media budget yet. Trust me, when an executive at a large corporation gets 20,000 emails from one of the parental groups that typically is based down south over an ad that ran in front of highly contentious content, they'll start paying attention. And we have to figure out as an industry a way to manage advertising for large companies who are the ones who, at the end of the day, bring the money to the table to support content production. We have to figure out a way to easily provide automated monitoring and screening and integration approaches for those advertisers into content. The question that I thought you asked, Scott, about the page versus the player was a key question that has to be addressed. We're testing syndication models with a number of publishers, and what we're seeing happen is that on a number of blogs and affiliates who pick up content, they're surrounding the player environment with Google AdWords or with other network-based banner ad impressions. And I can tell you as a buyer, when there's that level of inconsistency across sites that I'm buying pre-roll in an environment in, I'm not going to buy it, because clutter reduces impact of advertising, and the more crap there is on a page, to put it bluntly, the less effective a branded ad is going to be in a video environment, and that's what we have to figure out to make the distributed model work. Was that a schizophrenic enough for you?
Half of me thinks yes. Darcy, the media companies are no longer just streaming to their sites, right? And by media companies, I mean, we have to take a broader definition of what a media company is, right? I mean, the companies represented on this panel are clearly in the media business, as well as the entities that we've traditionally thought of as the large integrated media companies. What sort of, from your perspective, the cost implication and some of the other structural implications for distributing this video out broadly, having people look at it from different places, and the sorts of, I can't remember what it says, Web 2.0 activities that go along with that?
Well, I guess we have a little bit of a different perspective because all these folks are, sort of channels and they're the outlets. And we run the back end, so we start where the content hits the network, and then you start. We had a DRM committee dinner last night, and that was a fun time because people are arguing about DRM, but in the end, you have to start with some form of identifying what that object is and tagging it right through the life cycle. And I think Greg said it. Most of our customers have controlled environments, so typically they're not worrying about it, but they are worried that somebody can steal a stream and paste it somewhere else and do those kind of things. But if up front you've put DRM around it, put URL hashing into the network and secured and sort of hardened, I guess, the environment, then the worries go away. There's still, hackers that can figure it out, but we keep ahead of that. I mean, that's part of our security practice, is to make sure that you're not cutting and pasting out of one site to another and doing those things. So the costs are up front. How much are you willing to pay to harden and protect your content, so that when it gets to that outlet, that you know where it's going, why it's being used, what context it's being used in, what page it's playing out on, what's on that page. All this tracking is expensive. I'll tell you right now. But some of the content, especially the people we work with, have very expensive content. It's some of the first-run movies that we're running out there now that only get to the theater, going right to the websites. So that's high value. They're putting a lot more attention on that than some user-contributed content of playing a backyard football game. So it really comes down to what type of content it is, who you are as the owner, what the outlet is, and what the intent is.
But does the sort of proliferation of, volume, right? These guys serving hundreds of millions of videos, several other people here as well, YouTube, on and on and on. Is the network in danger? Is there a breaking point, or this can just all go and it's all good?
We have 1,000 people that worry every day about capacity. And when you see through, there's spikes in just tiny little viral marketing campaigns or we plan for it and we have a lot of capacity, but we also work with our competitors a lot because we know that there's times when we have to offload some of that capacity. But we're always ready for it. When I didn't mention in my introduction, but we're a utility company, so we've created a lot of capacity that's available in our solutions for this kind of growth and for those kind of spikes. And that's why CDNs are built, to offload some things off the servers that serve things up. At the end of the day, what do you all care about that? We need to operate more like a cable company, that you say, how many subscribers can I get to, and how much does it cost per subscriber? And we should never take your content down. So our costs are tremendous. We spent $16 billion as a company in the different acquisitions we have to create an infrastructure to do these things. But the costs for you are going to be things you have to think about, like I said before, wrapping with DRM, making sure that you've got encryption, things that you need to make important that you're going to have to add on top of that. We can help you with that. A lot of the people on this panel do it already. Our partners and us are really looking for how do we make a TV experience in quality and reliability and security in this new space. And everybody talks about the internet, and it's going to do what it does, but we're talking about IP infrastructure. IP television is on a PC, it's on a set-top box, it's on a mobile device, and that's really the hardened infrastructure I'm talking about. The Wild Wild West, we love those customers that come to us with 300 million streams a month because they spend a lot of money, and I'm just not sure where they're making it yet. So I hope they make a lot more money so they can spend a lot more, and that we're waiting for that to happen.
That seems like sound business practice. Rebecca, Maven launched with something that was a download application, right? How's that sort of changed as you've now interacted with advertisers for a few years using the download product and media companies? It's a different flavor of the same thing, right? The content goes into a download manager, it's on the person's hard drive. Is there a meaningful ad experience you can put together with that? A lot of content's being downloaded now as well as streamed, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting proposition right now in the download space, because obviously when you send something to a user's desktop, it's there. You're not, updating it on the fly as much as you might in a website where everything's live and the user's always connected. When in our world, we have to plan for users to be on an airplane viewing content. We have to plan for them to be with their video iPod on a subway looking at things. So as far as dynamic ad insertions, we now do that both in our download when the user is connected and in a streaming player that we're just launching. So we don't have so many metrics around the specifics of the advertising needs of the streaming player, but I would say that on the download side, where we've been working with people, I have to completely agree with Adam that the content the ad is running against is extremely important. And the reason why we've had so many advertisers and agencies come to us and say, please create broadband channels for this brand is for that very reason. They don't want to dilute their messaging around content that they can't control, around user-generated content that they can't control, or around other advertising that may creep in. My favorite example of this is my personal Gmail account, which I'm sure everyone in this room has one. Yahoo Mail ads come into it all the time. It's the most bizarre thing. So you're in your Gmail, you think you know the brand, you think you've solved the problem, and there's a Yahoo link right underneath your message. So it's a little bit strange. So I think in that world where there's so many ads and everybody thinks there's broadband content out there and there's a dearth of opportunity to advertise against video, you have to understand what that video is going to be, and is it your target audience, and what's happening? Did you find your snowboarders who are only watching, who are not watching television or are only playing games online? Did you reach them in the online capacity, or did you somehow reach mothers who have other needs, or did you reach senior citizens who have broadband connections in their old folks' homes? I mean, it's a gamut of content out there and a gamut of advertising opportunities. And for the agencies, it's a huge challenge of trying to understand how to reach those people when there are so many players and video opportunities available.
Sean, in mobile, this is going to play out differently, right?
Yeah, I find it interesting listening to the panelists, the way that people are thinking about video on the internet. The traditional media construct is center of network, right? A studio creates something of value, and it costs a lot of money to create that, a movie or song or whatever it is. And then in this sort of turn of the century industrial era kind of model, that relies on economy.
Turn of which century?
Well, that relies on economy of scale. They sort of push it out to as many people as possible, but that's not the internet, right? I mean, this content is being created and distributed at the edge of the network, and there is another way to look at this. I mean, I said recently, somewhere else I was speaking about, the biggest threat to incumbent media companies isn't other incumbent media companies. It's a 15-year-old girl with a mobile-connected camcorder creating her own mobisode-based reality show about her own life, right? I mean, that's content created at the edge of the network, and when you follow that trail to the very end of the line, it really is the device that's in someone's pocket, right? This is no longer a phone, it's a camcorder. And yes, there are mobile TV devices, and I see a lot of hype about that, but I remind everybody that these are also upload devices as well, right? So the media is flowing upstream, and rather than think about how we're going to monetize traditional media in this new environment called the internet or the mobile space, which is similar to some degree, why not rethink what video is from something that you sort of sit back and watch, and then sort of get an ad along with or something like that you may or may not take action on, to something that's participative, right? Something that you create in response to some event. I go to the U2 concert and I take a picture or a video clip, and for the $1 that I paid for the privilege of it showing up on the Jumbotron, I've just deepened my relationship with that brand that's called U2. What kind of promoter wouldn't want rabid fans like the Deadheads who would follow the Grateful Dead around? Why? Because the Grateful Dead was nice enough to allow everyone to record their content at their concerts. These guys were way ahead of the curve, right, by allowing people to participate in the media. So I think there are two differences between the internet and the mobile space. First of all, the mobile space comes with a near frictionless billing mechanism that is your phone bill, right? You don't have to pull out a credit card or anything like that to pay for something. People are used to paying for content and that sort of thing.
But in an advertising context, I mean, advertisers, by and large, pay for access to eyeballs, right? So you have to take all of that content and connect it to enough eyeballs to make it meaningful to an advertiser, right?
That's the first step. An advertiser isn't first and foremost paying for access to eyeballs. An advertiser is looking for conversion to something that's meaningful to them, either an affinity with their brand, it could be a DR play of some sort, I mean, whatever. They want someone to take action, right? So it's not so much that the eyeballs are valuable, it's the value that those eyeballs bring you. And all I'm saying is that there are a lot more, there are many other models other than look at my ad and please click on it and it takes you somewhere where you may take action or not. A lot of the advertising that I see on the internet, particularly in the video space, is not DR focused. It's branding. You know, Pepsi. I mean, those kinds of things. So if that's the case, why isn't Pepsi saying, hey, every kid with a mobile connected camcorder, contest? Who can take the best 20-second video clip of you, guzzling down my Pepsi or whatever it is? That's affinity, right? That's the value that the advertiser is looking for. It's not purely about eyeballs. We think it's about eyeballs because that's the only model that we understand from the broadcast world. And I would simply argue that the internet is not the broadcast world.
Greg, in working with your clients, how are they solving the problem of breaking through, of actually connecting their content with consumers?
Everyone.
Actually, I meant the other Greg.
The Greg? All right, I'm going to say.
Sorry.
That's
Greg
kind of a
T.
weird question for
Well, if
me.
you want to go ahead, we find advertising, and there's some great comments up here. Just give a little bit of background. We've been building networks for a couple years now under the name Continental Vista. We just soft launched White Blocks in January. But when we built the networks originally, and it's still to this day, a lot of small networks don't have the wherewithal to be able to sell advertising. So when we went to go off and be able to help monetize that, we would actually go off and do a revenue split. And that was okay. For small companies, small organization, it wasn't a big deal. But they too were worried about what ads would be up there. I mean, college, when we were doing a lot of college sports, they didn't want to see Hooters up there. So we had to be sensitive. So we had to put an agreement together saying we'd help pre-approve some of the advertising. It's a brand new ball game when we're dealing with very sophisticated companies now. We have created a controlled environment. We don't even do ad revenue sharing with organizations. They don't want to know. They don't want to know have us know how much they're selling the ads for. None of their financials whatsoever. So we've created a campaign server around that. And one of the things we find is that when we're designing these networks for these organizations, it's pretty much a hands-off. They want us to design it, build it for them, and they'll do what they need to do to get their advertising up there, their brands. When we're dealing with the advertisers who want to be in front of certain content, because let's say we're doing Indy car racing, and Indy car racing says, look, can you bring some advertisers to us? We find that the brands want to specifically get some level of metrics. They want to put their big toe in the water. They want to see what they can do, because the ones that we're working with, at least, this is a very brand new space for them, and it's kind of difficult for us because we're working with the brands, we're working with the agencies, and really we're finding the agencies don't quite get it or understand it yet, and we're finding the brands are saying, well, you know what, we'd like to find out the analytics or the metrics of who's really watching. So we're kind of going through a morph or an evolution of a better understanding of how to work with the brands and the advertising agencies. But at the end of the day, what we really find is that, and this is our experience, is that the advertiser would like to know who in the heck's watching it and if in fact they're going to engage with their product. And what's unique about the broadband experience is that, unlike television, you actually can capture these people. You can capture them when they're watching the content. For example, we have a system that when you're watching it, you don't have to log in or anything. But if you want to engage in the advertising, talk to the advertiser, or you want to engage in the actual communication or the chats or the forums, you actually have to log in. And now when you log in, we actually now know who you are. And if in fact you actually want to print a coupon or engage in the advertising, we ask you more questions. So the more you want to get involved, the more we get to know about you, the more we can actually get some of these analytics back to the brands, back to the advertising agencies, so we can get a little bit better feel for this new industry that we're working with.
And that's actually sort of a good segue. We're doing better than another 5-7 minutes and then start taking some questions. Is it a linear thing? In other words, if I'm watching a piece of video, does the advertising also have to be a piece of video? Right? I mean, right now, almost universally, people are putting video ads against video content, right? And yet you hear a lot of consumer feedback that, you know, it's disruptive. I don't want to see a pre-roll before I see the piece of content. Yet I know everybody's got to get paid. If it's a long-form piece of content, I don't want it interrupted for ads, right? And if you start interrupting it with ads for a piece of long-form content, guess what? I'm going to go back to downloading it from BitTorrent where it's free, there's no commercials, it looks great, I can take it to my television set, whatever. You know, is it a one-to-one correlation, or is that just, you know, an attempt to bolt on something that seems pretty straightforward? Adam, why don't you?
You know, I don't think it's going to be a linear experience, and I think, you know, where we're headed is to multimedia experiences. I mean, video will be wrapped with lots of other interactive content, and it'll be nonlinear in nature. Consumers and viewers will be able to engage with the content however they see fit. I think, you know, the essence of the question is really more about, I'm going to come back to that first pitch of the first inning analogy. Having participated on the buy side in really kind of some of the initial large investments in the broadband video space, and having been actively involved with the development of the pre-roll model, I can tell you that it was a design strategy by most people on the buy side and on the publisher side. Advertisers don't have anything else to run in the space. Okay? Their creative agencies still work in last century's model, where they produce one or two you know, commercial units for a campaign. They blow $1 million doing it, and then they expect that creative to run everywhere. So we had two choices at the beginning of the broadband explosion. We could have said, all right, we'll just wait for advertisers to catch up and figure this stuff out and start creating unique content for the space, or we'll take what they have and we'll start to prime the pump, with the goal of, you know, them quickly realizing that a 15 or 30-second pre-roll is not adequate for this space. We're in year 1 to 2 of that transition, and some advertisers are recognizing that what they're doing in the broadband space is not adequate. They're getting consumer feedback, they're recognizing that they need to do things very differently, and they're starting to change their creative agency alignment so that they can actually produce content for the broadband you know, space. And I think it's going to take time to get there. This isn't going to happen overnight. We're talking about reinventing an entire industry. I think the comments about moving away from the old model of exposure to new forms of engagement are dead on, and that's going to require new forms of creative and new formats for advertising that are much less intrusive. But until we get there, we kind of have what we have, and we have to figure out how to make it work. Publishers want to generate revenue in the short term. The one way to do it is to take advantage of the creative that's out there.
Keith, you've been nodding figures. Is that a tick, or did you have something?
No, I mean, I think that's right. I think, you know, we're seeing it already. We're seeing bits and pieces of people who used to come to us and say, please, we have a 12 to 25-year-old male demographic. They're not dying to watch 30-second pre-roll before a 15-second video. So we're seeing that people who would come to us and ask us to run those numbers are going down, and people coming with creative opportunities to engage the audience in different ways, particularly in the last 90 to 120 days, has increased dramatically. And we're big believers that most of the audience doesn't mind advertising. If it's products that are targeted to them, they'll embrace it. If we say, hey, this is an ad, but it's, you know, you might like this product, it'll still get 100,000 click-throughs in a morning. So it's a matter of finding the right products for the right audience, which is where everyone's targeting capabilities are actually really critical. You know, the Dove for Women campaign on a site like Break.com would be highly unsuccessful, for example. Secondly, it's the people at the creative agencies changing their attitudes a little bit, and we're really, I mean, it really is starting to change, and it was a dramatically different attitude even 12 months ago.
Greg V, so a reality check on that. You're in the room pitching an advertiser. How much of the, you know, let's do something different is the, okay, we need to feel good about this meeting part of the conversation, and how much of it is really, that's what we want to do?
It's changed a lot over time, and we've always believed in the ad-supported model, and but at the same time, we've always believed that, not always, I mean, really since the model above, that pre-roll is really just an on-ramp into the space. The reality is, and Adam is actually absolutely right, that not only are we seeing television-style commercials, but they are the television commercial without even a click here to buy. You know, so it's, you know, even in the most basic sense, the agencies aren't leveraging the interactivity, you know, just core interactivity of the web, let alone Web 2.0 stuff. But you know, I think, you know, I think in the past 60 to 90 days as well, we've had a lot more marketers coming to us, and frankly, it's coming more often from the client side than the agency side, saying, we're thinking about this idea for WebAssociatic programming, and we'd like to see how we can get that distributed across and reach a broad audience. Or we've got, you know, we've got these assets, you know, we've had consumers create, you know, how to wear, you know, how I wear my Kenneth Cole shoes, or we've had advertisers come to us and say, listen, I'm tired of driving, I'm tired of spending money on broadcast networks or even on other websites. How do I turn my own site into a broadband network and really engage consumers, not just with my ad messages, but with valuable content that builds a relationship with them over time? And we are starting to see a fair amount of that. They're not spending the dollars yet, I'll be frank. We're still seeing the majority of our advertising dollars is still pre-roll. But we are seeing people become more progressive in how they're thinking about the medium and how to use it a little bit differently from what they're doing on television.
Steve, for Rever, how do you think this plays out? Because I mean, a lot of your traffic is going to come from embedded players, I presume, where the space inside the embedded player is really all you have to work with, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm going to contradict some of the logic that's been presented here, because I think that what I'm hearing, and at the risk of putting too fine a point on it, is that the environment that the video shows up in is of the essence now and forever, and I do not believe that. I think it's simply not the way the internet was designed. I think it is simply not the future of distribution as we're seeing it. I think it's not the future of consumer behavior around it. And I think advertisers, to a large extent, understand that, and many don't yet. But I can't imagine over the near and medium term, you won't see a massive uptake of ad buys against content moving across the network without the sort of anxieties around branded experience that we're describing. I just don't see it. I think that you know, the elephant in the room here that isn't being discussed, if I may be so bold, is copyright infringement and how that's affecting content relationships and content places. Because on the one hand, you have the marketers inside many of these major media brands, you know, pushing stuff out onto the network without even thinking twice about the copyright violations around that. On the other hand, you have the legal side of big media corporates screaming at those marketers inside their own building, saying, what the hell are you doing? You are infringing our own copyright by your behavior. That story and how it affects the advertising community who does not want to be in a liability relationship with content moving across the network that is copyright infringing is a big elephant in this room. And I think it's a worthy topic of discussion.
And you think that's one of the things that's keeping advertisers out of those environments?
Absolutely.
And so how do you bridge the gap?
Well, I think there has to be a refocus on, you know, what legitimate content is on the internet, and some very serious discussions have to take place about the aggregation of infringing content and how it's changing the rules for everybody on this panel. Because, you know, we're all sitting here talking about video file sharing. There are sites that are scaling up to massive usage against infringing content. The question becomes, is that practice sustainable? Can you build a business on it? Will advertisers play in that space? That would be my question.
The answer is no, because it's $50,000 per contributory copyright infringement instance. $50,000 per. So how many impressions do you think you'll have out there of some semi-popular video? And if Judge Jed Rakoff finds you guilty of contributory infringement, are you going to be able to bear the cost of that? That's enough to scare enough people away. Here's the interesting rub. The only reason that YouTube hasn't been sued out of existence yet, well, a couple of reasons. One is they don't have enough money in the bank to make it worthwhile, right? But do a big enough raise, IPO, and you'll see some people coming after them. But there are two other reasons. One is that a good percentage of that content is actually promotional, right? So net positive to the owners of the content that you know, that site is sort of provisioning. So it's like, well, we don't necessarily want to, you know, put our foot up their ass right now. The other problem is that it's not uniform content. So if it was all music or all movies or something like that, you'd have the RIAA, right, or the MPAA or whatever. You'd have a body that could go after them and say, we represent all of these things, and we can sweep up a good amount of value by suing you out of existence. Or at least
but
protecting the interests
there's
of
also
those
smart marketers co-opting that process, right? I mean, there's one company that I work with where, we got a music video that was, leaked to us in an incomplete format, right?
Right.
So we put it up, right? Lots and lots of people watched the music video. This went on for 2 weeks. It was very, very popular. After 2 weeks, we got a letter from the record company saying this is infringing content. You got to take it down. We'll sue you. Blah blah blah. We took it down, and about a month later, we found out that they had actually been the ones who leaked it to us in the first place,
Of course.
right? So is that marketing? Is that advertising? Is that copyright infringement?
Well, I think it's dubious that that they would. Well, no, I mean, look, it's okay to sort of leak your unfinished video and it's promotional because that's sort of popular content. It's a little bit chumpy to then send you a cease and desist and say, hey, what the hell? This is our content. I mean, at that point, I find that any claim they would make after that fact, after engaging in that activity themselves, would severely weaken their case.
Of course, but the reason I point it out is there are ways to co-opt the existing process, right?
But once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't get it back in. So you better think, before you make your content available on the internet. Right. If you think that you're going to control it by simply sending a C&D and that you're going to get the genie back in the bottle, you've got another thing coming. So if you can't afford to have that content out in everywhere, anywhere, whatever, being mashed up and possibly damaging your brand, then don't pull those kind of shenanigans.
But also, I mean, from the media company's standpoint, it's with probably millions of these embedded players out there and people uploading content from all over the place, it's incredibly hard to police, right? I mean, there isn't anybody, I don't know if anybody here knows of anybody that's making a business out of policing copyright across distributed networks.
I remember Julene Snyder from the Industry Standard had this great quote. She said, what is it about the phrase DRM that causes an overwhelming sense of sleepiness to kick in? Yeah, I thought that was great. It's like, DRM taxes the legitimate users and the ones who really want to get the content will find a way to get it anyway. There really is no way to secure content on the internet, nor should there be, in my opinion. What there should be is a wholesale change in the way that we approach this content, not from the standpoint that this is the broadcast model sort of repurposed to a slightly smaller and somewhat interactive screen. It should be a wholesale, rethinking of exactly what the medium is. I mean, look at how many technologies are about skipping past the ads, right? TiVo, hello, that's why I have it, right? So why are these agencies thinking that they're going to? This is a kind of a stupid question to ask. Why are these agents, thinking that they're going to hang on to a dead business model? But I guess that is the question, isn't it?
I would also just add that it's about many-to-many distribution, not one-to-many. And the flaw of broadcast model thinking at this point is that one-to-many is proving not to be the behavior practiced online.
Oh, Sean, I mean, your question brings to mind a line from a Monty Python movie, right? I mean, I'm not dead yet. Right. Questions? Go ahead.
As a content producer, what are my concerns, what are my worries about putting my content in more than one of your type of sites if I'm getting metrics and I'm getting a revenue share? Is there any downside to putting it everywhere that it's acceptable?
Go ahead.
I'll take a stab. I mean, I think, from a distribution standpoint, there's no downside to trying to get as broad a distribution, pipeline as you can. I think from the advertising and marketing side of the business, again, all of my comments are coming from the standpoint of large brand advertisers. There's a whole other component of advertisers who work in the CPA or direct space, who most of my comments probably do not apply to.
But also, Adam, I mean, to be fair, to Sean's point before, and it's obviously something we see more and more, even the large brand advertisers, right, are trying to find ways to make the advertising that they engage in more transactional, right?
Oh, absolutely, but look, there are lots of brand marketers who don't have anything to transact. They're looking to build brands. Their objectives are about the top of the funnel, not the bottom of the funnel. And I think people have to recognize that marketers are trying to do different things at different times with different media investments. And video has traditionally been a highly engaging communication tool for marketers. Yes, its abilities in recent times have been decreased, predominantly because of clutter that the networks have pushed into their linear feeds, which is a lot more commercial activity in the feed, and because viewers have gotten used to behavior on the web that allows them to skip content or control content. So yes, TV effectiveness is decreasing, but from an advertiser's perspective and a large brand marketer's perspective, if your content is out across multiple distribution points and it's being sold individually across each of those distribution points, your inventory really becomes more of a commodity than a value-add component to a marketer's buy. If you're out selling a sponsorship that can provide deep integration into content on an exclusive basis, you've got to control all of your ad avails. You've got to control that experience. The only way to do that is if you're pushing out across multiple pipelines, is to have a relationship with each of those distributors that allows you to control the entire experience. That's a very difficult thing to do with multiple people pushing your content out across distributed players. But if you're just looking to generate ad impressions and commodity impressions in your content, then pushing out across multiple pipelines and having multiple sales groups repping your inventory is an approach.
Next question. No questions?
Comment. Really, when the day is done, it's all about the creative. Because to a point, the copyright infringement issue and other things appear to be less of an issue if you understand what the message is. There are some things you won't mind being out there, and others you do. And I would just think that you're going to have all sorts of different ways of getting the message out that won't matter what's done.
Yeah, I think as a content owner or an advertiser, at the same time, you want to make sure you're able to reach large groups of people at once. So that's where scale and size does matter. So going back to where on the internet, if you're on a million people's, if you have Meta players on 1 million people's MySpace pages or 30 million people, but you don't know how many videos that represents for any one piece of content or any one ad, it gets increasingly hard to figure out. The value of TV becomes more clear because there you're getting Thursday night TV, and even though it's less people than it was before, I think American Idol still gets 25 million people at once. And even large internet platforms are only approaching those numbers yet in very small numbers. So yeah, the content matters and all these things matter, but it still matters when you're an advertiser, when you're trying to get your piece of content out, how to get scale if there's a time sensitive, if you want the impact to be immediate. Otherwise, you can sort of let it out. And
Not if you want to reach my 23-year-old mental. It's just not going to happen. And in the end, you've got to craft, you've got people, creatives, the agencies have to
Yeah.
understand.
I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but clearly I believe that that's true. I just think there's just dropping it out there somewhere on the web is not necessarily going to mean it's going to reach your 23-year-old boys. You have to figure out the right places to drop it. You have to make it compelling, creative, and you have to make sure it's you're approaching the right people with the message.
Rebecca, when you're working with people, and you're sitting down and you're trying to spec something out for a client, how does the conversation about how to integrate the advertising component go?
Let me just go back to those 23-year-olds. I would argue that if you just slam the market and put that piece of content everywhere, it's going to be very much less valuable to them. And so, we're all talking about reach, but really understanding what that reach means and who these people are, and even in your case about, should I be using all of these vehicles to get my content out? For advertisers, that's great. There's more content for us to serve ads against and more impressions that we can generate in this great broadband video environment. But unless you actually know who those people are that you're trying to reach and what the platform is and how they're going to be using the content, if your piece of content is designed for video iPod, you should really watch what you're doing with it when it starts to be going out into the internet and people are playing it full screen and it's a little small streaming window and suddenly, you know, everything's pixelating and there's a negative impression of both of your content and the advertising that's served against it. In the case of, you know, the 23-year-old twins, it's only valuable if it's special to them and they found it and it's viral and it's come to them recommended by friends and trusted sources. But if they know it's available on this website and this website and this website and they saw it on someone else's blog, it ceases to become as impactful and relevant to them. You know, so, and then back to the question about integrating with advertisers in a content space or just with the marketers generally?
Either one.
It's a tricky question, right? So, you know, what is the advertising that people are trying to do? And a lot of times I work with brands who, content owners and brands who have specific sponsorships and creative models in mind. So where it's not necessarily a pre-roll that's going to solve all the problems, but where it's an integration or an interaction rate that is really going to work on an ongoing basis with a lot of people actively participating. So all of our metrics in our applications are less around actual click-throughs, although we'd also do measure that, but it's this person interacted with this application for 20 minutes. So for 20 minutes, they had Chevy branding on their desktop, full screen. They clicked through, they checked the vehicle locator, they went to find a dealer, they generated a coupon, they downloaded the calendar of Chevy country music artists and their cars, and so they have multiple interactions with the brand outside of, you know, any 15-second pre-roll that they could possibly slide through or not slide through. You know, creative sponsorships as far as we own the podcasting area, or we own the video iPod. We're trying to establish an affinity with some specific piece of technology, so it's not just a pre-roll against a piece of content, but it's a means of interacting that is meaningful to the brand in some way. So for Mountain Dew to create a channel that was all about reaching gamers online, and what was the content in there? Well, it wasn't just Mountain Dew ads, right? It was extreme sports and snowboarding and music and all the kinds of things that would match this audience and give them some reason to keep coming back every week.
But what was the mechanism that they were thinking of to connect their audience with that piece of content? Is there a media vehicle that drives audience to that Mountain Dew experience?
So what they did was try to find these guys anywhere except on television. So they did rich media ads against a bunch of gaming websites. They had contests on their MountainDew.com that were about entering to win an Xbox. So and they also really leveraged the viral. And a lot of the applications that we do really leverage viral and recommendations from friends and colleagues and family members and like-minded individuals where you trust the recommendation. So it's not an ad that just came to you from the internet or a piece of content that's just out everywhere. It's someone that really means something to you, sent it to you and said, hey, check this out. You're much more likely to click through to do that. So, you know, for Mountain Dew, they had sort of some extraordinary number. I have 30-35% of share rate on this application, but for every 3 friends that they shared with, they got a chance to enter and win an Xbox. So that's, you know, a relatively inexpensive one Xbox to leverage, you know, across thousands and thousands of users who are sharing this application in some meaningful way.
Well, it depends when you bought the Xbox. I mean,
Well, yeah,
December,
I mean,
they were
this
pretty
is-
expensive.
Right, exactly.
Uh,
Same with the video iPod, I suppose.
Other questions? Go ahead.
Might not do advertisers value more linear advertising placed pre-roll versus post-roll versus textual ads around the player, graphics, standard banners.
It depends on how you're defining value. But clearly, you know, in our case at least, and I think this is probably consistent across the industry, pre-roll advertising is garnering a premium over display ads. Typically, you're not seeing pre-roll, and again, I think you see this fairly consistently across various providers. It's not just a video ad in the pre-roll. There are usually display elements around it, and like Adam was talking about, that will become more and more prevalent where it's display elements, it's flash elements, it's interactive elements that surround the video experience that will really garner premiums.
What's the ratio, right? So, you know, the display ads, the CPM display ads to the CPM of, we'll just call it the video unit because it includes all that stuff. Is it 2 to 1?
You know, you know, just speaking in our experience, because I don't know what everybody's getting, but I think we're probably fairly close to industry average. the CPMs we're seeing on video units, and again, it's video plus display as an integrated unit, are, let's say, on average between $18 and $25 on a run of network basis. If you're looking at targeted content categories that are high value for specific types of advertisers, particularly healthcare, those might be $50 or $60 CPMs. Display ads, you know, we do run some remnant display ads on our site, and we're getting maybe 60-cent CPMs. So there's quite a big difference between the two types of advertising.
So that's 60 cents if it's just the display ads, like the video and display ads,
Yes.
Yeah.
Most average, just so people understand how the model's evolved, from the agency side, and I think from most of the large publishers, if you look at how MSN and Yahoo and others have built their video products, it's an integrated unit that's sold. It's not sold on a piecemeal basis. So the pre-roll ad and the adjacent expandable unit that might run during the video ad and the leave behind that might exist as the content plays is treated as one unit by most agency buyers. And it's not sold on an individual basis. You can't go buy just a banner in a player environment, you know, from most video sellers. They don't do it. And you know, agencies don't give any value to post-roll, if any. I mean, they typically will not pay for post-roll. And they typically only place the media value on the pre-roll unit, video unit that's running. The expandable unit and the banner are treated as part of that video experience.
Correct.
I want to say that I concur. We sell the experience, and that is a combination of interactivity for the viewer when they're coming in. So it's a live ad insertion or an insertion on demand, which complements an ad around the player. It could skin the player when the ad's playing, but that's an entire experience that we find as well when we're selling advertising to the brand or the ad agency.
I mean, I think just the one important note on that is, just as a publisher, a lot of the campaigns are highly creative and very successful. But for each viral campaign that succeeds, we probably get slipped 30 that would never take off. So the problem with the viral campaigns are they're very hit or miss. And there's far more that I think do not ever resonate with a particular audience or demographic. And so they're the greatest marketing when they're executed correctly, but it's not like you're going out and buying advertising and you're sure that a lot of people are going to see it. So it's almost a combination of great creative, and you're still going to have to advertise around that great creative in almost every case, except for the 5% chance that it takes off and has a life of its own.
But Keith, do you think the low hit rate is inherent in the creation of viral advertising, or is the low hit rate just that we're kind of in a trial and error learning phase? I mean, it's all new, right?
I think the low hit rate is the nature of the creative business as a whole, and for things like this. I mean, we post 8 videos out of 400 submitted, so there's a 2% hit rate on people creating videos for the website.
And you should see how the networks do.
Yeah.
Darcy?
We do a lot of brand management, so a lot of brands exist in our network from cable to broadcast. And we've seen in the last 6 months, almost every brand is trying to create their own broadband channel. And they're putting their own brand in there, and they're trying to acquire content for that particular environment. So where you have folks that are building sort of generic channels that bring advertisers, multiple advertisers to one site, there's a big trend for a single advertiser on a single site. And I'm only saying that because I look at our trends every week, And almost every brand has now got a website, and it's not a static website where you go download coupons. It's a website that has rich media enabled. It's got rich media that's relative to the consumer that they've had for 10 years. If it's a baby site, it's got baby movies and those kind of things. So a lot of those big brands, P&G, J&J, they're all doing it. They all have, and it's not. And the nice thing that's really happening is it's not only for the audience, it's also for internal consumption. So they have a way to do product launches and things that are very interesting that go automatically to the consumer. So a lot of that going on. I don't think there's a major brand that's not doing that on our network today, that hasn't started to look at that over the last 6 months.
And they're managing those web presences effectively as business units?
Absolutely. I mean, they still get involved with their agency. I mean, they have some creative that's specific for that website
Right.
that gets done, but now they're coming to us and saying, I got these 20 videos I got from this library, and I want you to put a bug in it that puts our brand in the video. And so there's those things going on, but the whole experience is baby site. It's their site for those particular users, and they can go out. They already know who those users are, so they can drive traffic to that site really fast. We see spikes in these things. We know when they're launching a diaper site, we better watch out because there's going to be a million moms hitting it at 10 o'clock in the morning. So.
I think if you repurpose 15s on mobile, there'll be a lot of smashed mobile phone handsets lining the streets of every town. No, you can't, and I'd love to hear, from the other panelists who's involved in the mobile space. From an advertiser perspective, I think it would be the worst thing to do in the world. I mean, I think we can get away with it on the web for a short period of time. I think advertisers have to step up and recognize that 3 seconds or 5 seconds can in many cases be more effective than 15 or 30, that they need to think through kind of entirely new ways to message to consumers. And I think that's true for the mobile space as well. I think that if advertisers just try to collapse their existing creative onto a 1-inch or a 2-inch screen, the 5 or 7 year kind of slow ramp that we've seen in the mobile space that has the potential to hockey stick fairly quickly if we do things right, will extend for another 5 to 7 years.
I can give you some value there too as an infrastructure provider. Our transcoding engine suddenly, when mobile got popular, got very popular in terms of just taking a 15-second ad and transcoding it to a smaller bit rate. So while it's not the ideal, and I agree with Adam, there's got to be new content that's going to go out there. That's exactly what's happening. They're transcoding it to some small bit rate and thinking that it's going to be compelling for a user. And I look at them all the time, and some of them do a good job, but it wasn't created originally to be transcoded and downgraded to that level, and it's not a great experience. So I guess there's going to be a surge of people that come out specially making mobile ads, and we're seeing some of that too.
Well, we have time for one more.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how to ask this, but do you see the potential for a whole new realm of advertisers or aggregating interests and telling a story? And I guess the clearest example I can think of is we have lots of fast food and soda pop advertisers, but we also have a huge problem with obesity and healthy lifestyles and stuff, which is a whole aggregate of educational and healthcare and lots of other interests that would like get that story out there. Right now they aren't, there's no there yet. But do you see a potential for creating that collection of interests, a way for a collection of interests to come together and support and get those kinds of stories out, if ads are just other stories matching up?
We had a customer, MAD, who does stuff for their people. Now they're launching the MAD channel. The Mothers Against Drunk Driving is exactly that. All the advertising that they do is coming to that experience. The films you see on there are all about educating people on drunk driving. So it's going on. And I think those communities of interest, you're going to see a lot more community of interest sites pop up that are inside of the social networking groups and outside of them.
Steve, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, we're putting non-prof video up on our site for free and distributing it across the network, and we're also we're rolling out a self-service quality where those smaller kind of communities of interest type advertisers can do the mom and pop kind of Google AdWords approach, where they can locate content they're interested in associating with and/or affix it to their own public service announcements and what have you.
Yeah, I also think the thing that you're starting to see and you're going to see more of is advertisers being brought in the process of creating a new digital product much earlier in the process. And that looks like it's going to continue to accelerate, right? And there'll be some experiments with branded programming. We've seen some of them already. But I think the key to getting the work you're talking about is getting them into the process earlier. That runs us out of time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the panel. Have a good day.